Hey friends, my name is Zara and this is the Daydreaming Wolves podcast, in which I talk about folk herbalism, the tarot, trauma-informed magic, as well as the politics of healing and small business adventures. Sometimes it's just me sharing rituals and inspiration, and sometimes I have beautiful like-minded guests on the show. If you would like to learn more about my work, you can visit daydreamingwolves.com for all things magic and sarahmagdalenalove.com for web design and tech support. Feel free to subscribe on iTunes, and if you like my podcast, know that a review would really be appreciated. Hey friends, just a really quick note to wish you a really beautiful new moon and update you on where I'm at and what's happening in my world. So I am off to Morocco for a week tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. I really feel like I need a break, and I'm excited to gather some inspiration to bring that back to you. So if you want to see some of my Morocco impressions, follow me on Instagram, Sarah Magdalena Love on there. Otherwise, I'm sending out a couple more bonuses to everyone who is a patron, which starts at $3 today. So there's a monthly ritual kit that you can get, and you can find out more at patreon.com/Sarah Magdalena Love. Yeah, that's all. I really hope that you're feeling good about the beginning of the new year and all that has brought to you so far. I am super excited to share this week's interview with you. I just listened back to it and I got so much out of Jessie's insight about money and relating to cash and surviving in late stage capitalism. So yeah, I'm really grateful that she spoke to us, and I'm excited to share that with you. I will speak to you really soon. Bye. Hey everyone, I am really excited, and I know again I always say that, but it's also always true, to have the money witch Jessie Susannah Karnatz on the show today. So I want to give you, as I always do, my fangirl introduction first. I came across her work on Instagram, which really inspired me. I'm always up for talking about money and desire and how we relate to work in a way that includes the politics that I care about, in a way that looks at things like access and class and criticism of capitalism in really interesting and creative and healing ways. So yeah, I'm really excited to have her on the show today, and I have a bunch of really cool questions, and before we dive into them, I'm going to let her introduce herself now.
Hi, I'm Jessie Susannah.
Hi.
I run a business called Money Witch. Hi.
Yeah, it's beautiful. One of the first questions I would love to ask you before you tell us more about the business that you're running and how you came to have this awesome name is where you are in the world right now and what nature is like around you.
Okay, I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in San Francisco, the city of San Francisco in the Bay Area, Northern California, the United States, or what's currently called the United States, which is unceded indigenous land.
Mm-hmm. And what is nature like around you? So we're recording this in November. Is it still really warm, or can you really feel the seasons changing already?
It's been so funny. I mean, Northern California, like we don't have seasons in the way that, like that idea of seasons, I think, is so centralized around like what seasons are like in Europe, like the way that we're taught that seasons go. So, but it's been a little unseasonably warm here, which mostly just means it hasn't been that windy. Like here, it gets very cold and windy. But when it's not windy, it's not that cold. But then it's been raining, which is great. We hadn't had rain for a number of years until last year. But it was raining all day yesterday and this overnight. So that's nice. The sun's coming out a little bit. And I'm looking at my neighbor's ginkgo tree, and all the leaves are turning yellow and they're kind of getting ready to fall off.
That sounds
so we're having sort of fall winter light here.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I would love to know a little bit more about how you came to do the work that you do and how you came up with your I don't want to call it working title because it's way too magic for that. But how did you become the money witch? Were you born a money witch, or like how did that come to be?
Just a very organic process. It's a little bit of a long story, so I could try to be more succinct, but
no, go for it.
okay. I would say that the origins of my business now start in kind of like around 2000, like 1999, 2000, which is when I became a sex worker. I was a stripper for like 8 years. Mm-hmm. And because of that experience, I just feel like it's a very intimate experience with actual cash. Like I have a very powerful relationship with like literal cash. And mm-hmm. And then through that experience, I got the opportunity, I think it was like 2004 or 5. I was working in San Francisco. I had moved to the Bay, and I was working at a peep show called The Lusty Lady, which at the time was unionized and, you know, had been kind of celebrated as like one of the only successful unionization campaigns for sex workers internationally. Mm-hmm. And they were going to shut down the business. Basically, like they laid us all off and mm-hmm. were like going to shut down the business. And we organized to buy it as a worker-owned cooperative. Mm-hmm. So that experience, and I did a lot of work. I was on the founding board of directors, and I did a lot of work to kind of help buy that business. And it was just like a crash course in actual business. Like, you know, I just kind of learned how to buy this like $1 million business off. Wow. And with my friends, you know, so we learned about, you know, all kinds of things with business. And then I was on the board of directors over there. And then I was in a position called madam and then lead madam for like a number of years over there, where I got a bunch of like managerial experience, HR, just like learning a lot about business, actual mm-hmm. like running business. And then I kind of segued from that. I got more interested in worker-owned cooperatives and worker-owned cooperative business structure, mm-hmm. and sort of started like working in larger sphere of worker-owned co-ops in the Bay Area through an organization called NOBOS, which is the Network of Bay Area Worker Cooperatives, and then nationally, like being involved in kind of national worker co-op business movement. And then I started a business in 2008, which mm-hmm. is sort of like the precursor to Money Witch. And it was a joint venture. I had 2 business partners that were also coming out of the worker co-op world. And our ideal was that we wanted to offer bookkeeping and tax services for people within the worker-owned cooperative community with like mm-hmm. cultural competency in that arena. Mm-hmm. So we started that, and it was like similar offerings to what I do now, but without the spiritual slant. But there was mm-hmm. a kind of like a little bit of an emotional or kind of like functionality mm-hmm. aspect. And I got pregnant, and I got very sick, and I had a falling out with my business partner, and that just kind of like crashed and burned pretty quickly. And then I kind of kept doing bookkeeping a little tiny bit, did a little tiny bit of taxes, just helping people out, but was sort of just in mom lands for a number mm-hmm. of years. And then in 2012, there was, I mean, starting in 2011, but really into 2012, I like experienced a massive, like it was like the tower year, you know, like everything just got destroyed. Mm-hmm. And I had kind of a massive like spiritual reawakening mm-hmm. And sort of reconnected to a lot of spiritual power that I had felt more connected to as a younger person, but had been a little bit out of touch with. And you know, I got divorced and I got evicted. Like all these things happened in 1 year, right? So all of that kind of like burned down. And, you know, from the ashes of that, I was just like, I have to rebuild my financial life and my professional life And I did, and I started 2 businesses at one time. So I'm trained as a postpartum doula. I don't really work in that field at all. So I wouldn't say, I am that, but I started a postpartum doula business, and I started Money Witch at the same time. And Money Witch just like took off to the point where I was just like, okay, the doula business, like I just shut it down. And yeah, I had become very interested through doing bookkeeping and taxes with people previously in like why people's behavior around money was like it was. Like I would go as a bookkeeper, you go and you kind of like show up to people's businesses once a month. And you're like, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z to get organized, or to be successful, etc. And then you go back the next month, like, did you do those things? No. So I just got very interested in like, okay, why? And it's not enough to just kind of like let people know what it is that they need to be doing. It's really about digging in. I just felt like in order to financially help people, like the most helpful thing I could be doing was like helping them figure out like why they're not doing the things they need to be doing to be, stable or successful or build wealth for themselves, etc. So that really factors like extremely prominently into the kind of like rebirth of my business and the way that I do business now. And so I think that's like fall of 2013, really like headed into, fall of 2013 is like my very baby version of Money Witch comes out. So we're like about 4 years old now.
Cool. Yeah. That's beautiful. And it makes so much sense to me. I hadn't known about this backstory and how you came to this work. And yeah, it all makes sense to me now. That's wonderful. And I love that it took off so quickly for you, and that you had this clarity around this being the thing that you really wanted to do. And yeah, that's amazing. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what you love about working with people and their finances? I feel that there's so much passion and creativity and also humor coming through your Instagram account. And I know that this fun was really something that was missing for me in finances a long time, because I always felt like trapped between this like really being super bored and just not wanting to look at it, feeling a sense of shame around some of my financial decisions, and then also this sense of hopelessness when I would look at the system as a whole, and then another layer being this kind of sense of wanting to be really different than those other greedy rich people that I had never looked at with a lot of clarity or discerning judgment. All of these are not the right words, but I think there was this like, oh, I don't want to be like that, so I'm not going to look at my money, and obviously that's not helpful at all. So yeah, I felt really inspired by your work, and I would love to hear from you what you love and about what do you love about bringing people back to their finances in a cool way.
I just love to see shift, and it's one of the foundational premises of my work and my business, and my personal work, and just sort of my like spiritual philosophy that your human assignment, like the assignment of being a human, is your single most important piece of spiritual work right now. Or you wouldn't be doing it. It's like the things that make you up were not in human form for like millions of years, like will not be in human form for millions of years, at least not in the incarnation that you're in now. It's such a relatively short assignment, and it's the foundation of, like, to me, you're gonna do the work that you need to do if you just focus on being a human. And being a human is about being an animal, and being an animal is about survival. And the way that we do survival in the incarnations that we're like kind of currently as a group being assigned is through this cultural structure of like late stage global capitalism. So this is our assignment, is figuring this out and getting into it, like get into the work rather than avoiding it, because that's what's going to offer that shift, and going in is what's going to offer healing, which really like ripples out on so many levels. I also like believe that, a lot of the work that people, or let's just say a lot of the ways that people interact with money and finance, like on a personal and somewhat political level, that's created like in the interest of liberation, like people who are interested in liberation or who are capitalist critical, or just who are like not here for oppression in general, sort of have these ways of dealing with their finances that are hypothetically supposed to be sort of liberatory, or they're just more like anti-capitalist, but I don't actually like think they're truly liberatory. So, or that they're truly helping us get to a more liberated space, across the board. So I'm really interested in like participating in a conversation about liberatory economics, or how the way that we interact with money contributes to liberation in a way that is like deeply radical, but also deeply practical and efficient.
Yeah, I love the word efficient, to be honest. That's great. Yes.
Like that really works. It's really important to me to do things and to encourage people to do things that really work. Like I'm very disinterested in kind of like hypotheticals or like what you should be doing or what you think you should be doing. It's like, what are you actually going to do? And then what's the actual impact and effect of it? And how does that sort of contribute to the larger picture?
Yeah. And how can that be healing? I feel that dropping the shame around money and finances and getting into a habit of having positive and constructive conversations around it is so healing as well.
Well, the tendrils of like everything that we're dealing with, like patriarchy, white supremacy, et cetera, like those things are so intertwined with economics that it's like feeling like you can kind of opt out of capitalism is similar to feeling like you can opt out of white supremacy, or like, you know what I mean? It's like you can't, like the impact of economics in terms of like survival, power, resources, the money part is not an aside. The money part is actually at the center really of those systems. And if we don't really get into it and we're just kind of like skirting around it, then we're not really like gonna get into the healing work. The things that are gonna heal those systems involve money, and they involve like us being present for our relationship with money. So I think it's actually like, virtually impossible to kind of heal our relationships to those things and those like massive kind of like psychic woundings that we're carrying without getting into the financial aspects.
Yeah, I agree. I feel that when we're starting to talk about money with each other, there's often a sense of like overwhelm and not really being sure where to start. So I'm wondering if you can share maybe a practical tool or like a magical practice around money that you find people experience as quite accessible.
Well, I think transparency around money is really powerful. Like I noticed yesterday, I went to lunch with some of my cousins and I was like talking about my business, and I'm sort of like, okay, well the sort of veiled or or polite version of the story is for me to say like, oh, I've been running my business for 4 years and it's like grown every year and it's doing good. And I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. And, I'm not quite making as much money as I would like to, but I'm on a trajectory to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I was like, but actually what I want to say is kind of like, here's how much I made in 2014. Here's how much I made in 2015. Here's how much I made in 2016. Here's how much I made in 2017.
Yes.
And here's how much of that was profit. And I felt uncomfortable doing it, but I just did it anyway, because I'm like, let's just talk about numbers,
Yeah.
Which for transparency's sake, because I just like to do it. And, I know other people who are healing, have small businesses in the healing arts, et cetera, probably listen to your podcast. And I think it's cool to talk about like, what does it look like for a business to grow? So I would just say, so in 2014, and this is just sales, right? Like not profit. In 2014, I probably did somewhere in around $7,000 in business. 2015 was somewhere between like around 14,000. 2016, I think was around 36,000. And this year, 2017, I'll have done probably around 57,000 in sales.
Yeah.
Which is not profit, but that's what it looks like for sales in a business to grow, over 4 years, or in my, because I don't know. I just think like really talking about it on that level helps. It is deeply liberatory and is something that people can do, to just be like talking about, like how much money are you living off on a monthly basis, and to kind of have some transparency around that with the people around you. But a little like sort of more magical tool. I can offer just like a couple little like magic tools that I do that are kind of, they're just energetic. So they're just affecting the flow in a sort of more meta way. But I have a huge like spare change practice. Like I really look for change on the grounds actively and find it all the time. And I follow pennies. Like when I see pennies, I'm like, oh, I'm on the right track. That's a sign to me that I'm sort of like on path. And I think pennies in the United States are really special because, they're like, people don't want them, but they're made of copper, which is such a special metal. So when so I look for coins, and then when I see them, I step on them and I say money on the floor, money at the door. Ooh. And then I put them in my bra, and then I carry them around. And then when I get undressed at the end of the night, I put them all in this cup. Like I have a cup, and then it's like on my money altar. And every time I walk by it, I'll like pick up the cup and shake it. So I don't know. That's like one of the little money magic things that I do super actively that I feel like, is easy and accessible way to just sort of be, I don't know, talking to money, I guess.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm also a money finder. I find coins sometimes and I see that as a positive sign, and I carry them in my pocket. And I don't have a jar. I really love that practice. And I hadn't known about the stepping on them and saying that phrase. That's beautiful. And I want to say thank you also for sharing some of your numbers, because I totally agree that it can feel very abstract to people what it means to run a business and how it can grow. And I think that also there are huge misunderstandings around profit and turnover and what that means, and what running costs a business has and all of that. So yeah, to me it's also almost a magical practice to sit down with some people in my life that I have intimate relationships with and just get into this habit of being like, this is what I made this month, and this is what kind of feels missing, or like this is what I would need to feel really safe and abundant, or this is what I made last year and this is what I'm hoping to make next year, and these are my goals. Because I think that sometimes we kind of have this differentiation of the numbers being super abstract and like having no emotional connection to them, but actually one of the most magical things in my business that I was able to do was to really connect the numbers to my emotional goals and to keep them aligned with each other, and to look at, like, what do I need to feel safe? What kind of insurances do I want? How how far ahead do I feel like I want to plan my bookings and my clients and all of that. And that's so new to me because I have been in employment for most of my 20s and started freelancing as a 27-year-old, I think. And so it's been a few years now, but it's still not something that we were being taught collectively in school or a college. So yeah, very much feeling like I'm reclaiming or kind of making that space for myself in this world, and it's really interesting. So thank you for sharing.
Oh yeah, no problem. And I'm happy to talk too about, if it's helpful to say like, because I do think it's interesting also to say, like for 2017, I'm going to have done probably around 58,000 in sales. Mm-hmm. That looks like me taking home probably around, I would say maybe 35 or 38,000 mm-hmm. at that, and then there's the tax situation. So it's, it's like, I think it is important, for people to understand, like, how much would you need to do in sales in order to sustain yourself, right? So to me, my goal for sales would be much closer to 100,000 for the year, and then ideally, I would be able to take home, 70,000 of that. Mm-hmm. That would be more ideal for me. But and then figuring out, like, what do you actually practically have to do in your business to make that happen? Like for me, I'm hit a little bit of a wall in terms of, I don't have more hours to trade for money, right? Like I don't have more time to trade for money. And I don't, I've raised my prices a little bit over the years, and I'm like gonna raise a little bit more this year. Like I kind of bring them up a little bit every year, but not enough to make me another, $42,000. Mm-hmm. So, you have to kind of look at like what needs to happen in your business practically, because you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. Like if I just kept doing the same thing every year and being like, I'd like to make $100,000, and I'm like falling short every year.
Yeah.
It's like, it just doesn't work like that. Like I have to figure out like, what do I need to do in order to make that happen? And then that's much more like product. I'm like, oh, I also need products, right? So that I can have, people call it passive income, but I think it's been kind of shifting to be called soft income more because
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's not passive, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah, totally. I have another question for you, and I feel like we've already touched on this a little bit, but what would you say do you wish is one thing that you wish people knew about money magic or money in general?
That they can do it. Like that you can do it, that that the idea that only some people can have control and the word that's coming to me is mastery, but I don't like that word really, but I'm just going to go with it so we can move on with this sentence. Over money in your life. Like the idea that only some people can have that, and that's like stockbrokers or people who went to business school, or, people who come from a certain class background, or people who are men, or people who are white, or, that those are the only people who can kind of like have a super successful relationship with finances or have control over their finances. That's part of, like, that's an illusion. That's part of a larger magic spell called capitalism. And that, it's important for us to kind of like break the energetic spell of capitalism. And part of the way that we do that is by, asserting our own positioning in finances and in our finances. And, that we all have the capacity to intervene and like be in control. And, there are things like, numbers are not easy for everyone, and not everyone's brain like does numbers in the same way, and not everyone's gonna have the same relationship to kind of like their finances, but there's practical, everyone has the capacity to kind of affect change on an energetic and practical level of finance in their own life. So yeah, just that it's like, it is for you. Like money is for you is the thing that I wish that people knew.
Yeah, that's a beautiful phrase. I'm definitely gonna remember that money is for you, because I feel like I also really care about expanding people's capacity to dream a little bit bigger without falling into this more like law of attraction. If I can do it, everyone can do it. We're totally not going to look at structural stuff because, and that's so different. And that's not what we're saying here. I feel like that's really important to say. But I so often hear people, just recently spoke to another friend who has a working class background, and they said, oh, I will never have a pension. And I really wanted to kind of just be present with their experience of that. And, it didn't feel like I wanted to be like, oh, no, wait, but, look, you could do this or that. And, that wasn't the right thing to do. But at the same time, there was some sadness. And I feel that collectively, I really want people to feel that they can take ownership and control and work with this in a different way that can feel more empowering. And so, yeah, thank you for picking that apart a little bit. I would love to know, kind of as we wrap up, what you're currently offering and how you came to offer that. So, what was the process like to come up with the services that you're offering, and where can people find them if they want to learn more about them?
Sure. So I offer the core offerings of my business is number one, the service I call intuitive financial coaching. So those are 2-hour sessions, and I do them in person in the Bay, or I do them via Skype. And it's basically a 2-hour session where we kind of dive into whatever set of practical questions a person has, and then kind of like also pull in the emotional, ancestral, spiritual aspects of what's going on. It looks a little bit different with everybody, kind of depending on what they want. Like some people come with a very clear set of questions and goals, and some people are just like, I just really need to get into my relationship around money. Like something has to change. I don't know what it is. So it can kind of start from any of those points. And I just use a combination of kind of like interviewing and intuition to follow like a series of interview questions that will kind of unveil like what sort of practical and spiritual tools might be helpful in creating a shift in finances for that person. And then I'll usually look at people's astrological chart too, to kind of see like, how is this work weaving into the larger cosmic assignment? So that's one thing I do. And then I do tax preparation services, mostly for people who have small businesses, or including people who have small businesses doing sex work. And I mean, I can do them for whoever, but that's like the crux of my clientele. And then I teach workshops. Thus far only in person, but I just last week finally, it was a huge accomplishment for me because I've been talking about it and wanting to do it for so long. I recorded one of my courses onto video, and I'm going to like work on editing in December with my wonderful videographer, Ruben, and hopefully have that out in January as a course to buy online. And I'm also this month working on an e-zine on money. So the course that I'm doing is my most practical course. It's called Business Basics for Not So Basic Business Babes. And it's about bookkeeping, taxes, and kind of legal structure of your business. So it's going to probably be like most appropriate to people who are doing business in the United States. And then I'm working on an e-zine on money magic, which is just, you know, the kind of more like fun, spiritual, metaphysical aspects. And that hopefully also will be coming out sometime in December or early January.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about all that, and the updates. Thank you. The updates for everything are on my website, which is healyourfinances.com, or you can find me on Instagram at money.witch, and that's where all the updates about all those things and like how to book appointments and all that is there.
Yeah, perfect. I really love your Instagram. So just wanted to give that another boost and really encourage people to check that out because it's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today and for sharing so much of yourself and for answering my questions and taking the time. I'm going to make sure that we add your links to the show notes as well. So if people are really interested and they haven't had a chance to write them down, not to worry, they're going to be there. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.